welcome to the Right Now Workshop podcast. I'm your host, Kitty Bucholtz, and this is episode 10, your recipe for a new year. So it is January 9th, 2018, and we're just coming off of Christmas and New Year's and all the delicious, delectable overeating that we usually do during that time of year. And I'm the kind of person who I'm not a good cook, don't really enjoy it, but really do enjoy making sweets and baked goods and that sort of thing. So whenever we're off to a party or any kind of family get together or any other kind of get together, I always ask, can I bring my brownies? And thankfully, people are always like, yes, that's what we want. It's actually the only thing that I do very well. At least that's what I think. Thankfully, they turn out really good. But today I am making Christmas pecans. So Christmas pecans are called Christmas pecans because we only make them at Christmas, but they're pretty much just cinnamon pecans. Now, I have a recipe for this that I got from my friend Janine that she got from her mom, and I have no idea where all it's come from then. And I actually might be wrong about exactly the progression of whose recipe it started out as, but I was at a family get-together and we were eating these amazing cinnamon pecans and I could not stop eating them. And I don't really like raw pecans, so this was kind of a big deal to me. I'm like, ooh, this is a sweet. It doesn't look too hard to do. Like, how do you do this? So I got the recipe. I've made them a couple of times now, and I think they're super delicious. And in fact, it's a pretty easy recipe. So I don't think that you can mess them up, which makes them an even better recipe for me. So here's the thing. Writing and pretty much any and other things in your life, all of these things can be based on a recipe, if you like. So let's say that you want to plan a way to, here's one. So I am running the Carlsbad Half Marathon next week. It's only 6 more days from now. I'm very nervous and scared and excited and happy and really wish I hadn't signed up and really super glad I have. So I'm running this half marathon and I really needed some help to get in shape because I'm actually not in the shape that I need to be in still for it. But I was in worse shape 3 months ago. So I got online and I've downloaded a plan this is how you can get ready for a half marathon in 3 months. I'm like, great, that's what I'm going to work on. So every day I've been doing what it tells me to do. This is your rest day. This is your 3-mile day. This is your 5-mile day. And as you work up your miles, like every single week I added a mile. So this is my 8-mile weekend. This is my 9-mile weekend, etc. And during the course of following this recipe, I found that I was undertraining and overtraining at the same time. So I wasn't physically able to really do everything that I was doing, even though I was following the plan to be ready in time for the half marathon. So there was a point at which that I had to stop and change the plan. Now, you and I have done this in our writing life many, many, many times, but it's the same as if you took a recipe, like my brownie recipe. I consider it my brownie recipe. I give it to anybody who wants it, but I know how to make it absolutely perfectly fabulous. And there's a couple of things that happened. First, I found some brownies that I really liked one time. I was at my sister's house and I said, can I have the recipe? And then over the next few years, I just kept tweaking it and changing it and seeing what would happen if I add this or delete this or change that. And sometimes it did not go very well. And I was like, okay, I'm not eating any of these. If my husband wants to eat them, great. But otherwise, I feel like these are throw in the trash worthy brownies. And other times I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the best possible food ever. So a lot of it had to do with, some of it had to do with the fact that I get off in my own little world and I sort of forget other things that are going on and I forget something is in the oven, that sort of thing. And I have a feeling a lot of you know what I mean about that, being off in our own little world. But a lot of times it's a matter of, do I have the exact right pan? Like this pan really makes them even more moist than that pan, that sort of thing. Or when I add this particular brand of chocolate chips to the brownies, it makes them, oh my gosh, so much better than if it's just kind of a regular normal brand of chocolate chips. seriously, sometimes it's the small things that make a difference. And that's the same thing in our writing life. Regardless of whether or not it's January or some other time of the year, if you're listening to this later, and we're thinking about goal setting or time management or project management, how am I going to get X number of books written this year or published this year, or all the marketing that I need to learn how to do in order to sell more books this year, whatever it is, for the most part, until we find somebody to copy, we're sort of muddling along, trying to create a recipe out of we're not really sure what. We're just sort of making it up as we go. But when we can find somebody who gives us a recipe for how to do things, so for instance, with marketing, I signed up for Mark Dawson's Facebook Ads for Authors course, which is now called Ads for Authors. And I was like, okay, now I get it. Now somebody's showing me like, this is what you do, and then this step, and then that step. And then my Facebook ads started showing some results, which was fabulous, because before that, when I was muddling along by myself, really no results. I would have to go with 0, maybe 1 result. So when you are deciding what sort of plan that you want to make for this year, you might want to start with somebody else's recipe. Start on another foundation that you can try it out, see how it works, see what's not working for you, figure out what you can do to change it, figure out what you can do to change it again and again until you find that sweet spot where you're like, this works perfectly for me. Now, in several of the other Tuesday episodes where I have my own personal little teaching episode as opposed to the interviews, which are Thursdays, and the encouraging words episodes, which are Sundays. The last couple of teaching episodes on Tuesdays, I've also been talking about time management and planning and getting ready for a new year. But this time I really want to let you know, you need to choose something that works for you. Now, it may be that you haven't found something that works for you yet, but if you take somebody else's idea and play with it and find some ways where you can change this and adjust that until it gets to be kind of perfectly right for you, that's the plan that you need to have. You don't need to follow, this guy or that girl. You need to figure out I probably shouldn't say girl, this man or that woman. I kind of hate being PC, but I also hate being rude. You can follow somebody else's plan to a point, but when you make it yours, that's when you really start noticing that things are working for you. And that's what I want to encourage you to do this year. And pretty much starting just as soon as you finish listening to this episode, and not just about planning. I mean, the way you write a book. You've probably gone to classes, read books, heard workshops where people are like, this is what I do to start a first draft or finish one, or this is how I edit or whatever. And they're trying to share information, which is awesome. And some of it's going to work for you and some of it won't. If you happen to be the kind of person who likes to cook or bake and you like the idea of a recipe and it sounds more familiar or maybe less scary, then start thinking of your writing and your promoting, your marketing, your goal setting, your time management, your project management. Think of them as recipes. And in fact, when I name all of them together, having just come off the holidays, I'm like, oh, and all of those recipes together create a very lovely meal. So if you look at it that way, it might be that you'll just adjust your perspective enough that you'll start having a few more aha moments and be able to say, okay, you know what? I need to write down that this works for me when I do this way. And then you can start creating your own little recipe. And maybe at some point, you'll be the person who's so good at this or so productive at that other people will be asking you, how do you do it? And then you can share your recipe with them and encourage them to find more ways to tweak it so that it works personally for that person. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that once you try one recipe and you've jiggled with it, you just have to stick with it. If you've been to very many potluck parties, whether it's a holiday party or otherwise, I think that one time I was at a holiday party that had 5 different kinds of stuffing at either a Thanksgiving or a Christmas meal, 5 different kinds, from people who were like, I make the best stuffing. No, I make the best stuffing. And it was kind of a friendly competition to see whose stuffing was gone quickest or how many people were like, oh, I like that stuffing the best. So you can definitely, look around, try a few different things. sometimes trying too many things makes you feel more overwhelmed and confused. So again, it kind of depends a little bit on your personality. Like, are you the kind of person who you can try 10 things and then choose one and just be happy with it? Maybe you're the kind of person who chooses one, sees whether or not it works. If it doesn't, you choose something else. But if it does work, you're done. You chose one and it worked and you're done. So definitely you want to figure out what is the usual way that your personality works when you're doing things, learning things, tweaking and changing things to make them work for you. And keep on going with that natural way that your personality works, because that's going to get you the best and probably the quickest end result for you. Now, if you want to try my foundational recipe for time management and project management, I've mentioned before that I teach a class most Januaries called Going the Distance, Time and Project Management for Writers. And this year it is going to start on Monday, January 15th, 2018. And most of the information and all the work and everything that we'll be doing in the class is going to happen in the first 4 to 6 weeks, because the whole point is to try to plan out our year and be able to put into place some practices and some structures that will help us to get more done with less stress before the end of the year. Now, I think I'm going to go ahead and leave the registration open until Wednesday, January 17th, because I've been late in getting my marketing promotion done for this class, because it was, after all, Christmas and New Year's. But if you sign up before January 17th, then you'll also be part of the new thing that I'm going to do, which is I'm going to have a half-day live online event where for 4 hours on Saturday, January 20th, 2018, we're going to get together on a video call, and the whole class, or whoever can make it, and I'll record it in case people can't make it, the whole class is going to work together on their individual lists of their goals, the things that they're trying to get done in their personal life, as well as their work life, their writing life. And we're going to put everything on paper, and then we're going to prioritize it, and then we're going to lay it all out on a calendar, see whether or not we've actually tried to accomplish way more than could possibly be done in 365 days. And we're going to get it all marked out so that by the end of this 4 hours, at the very least, you have the beginning of a plan for the whole rest of the year. This is going to make a big difference in the amount of work that you get done and the quality of time that you spend working. If you want to check it out, just go to writenowworkshop.com, and that's WRITE, writenowworkshop.com. All the information's there. The dates are there. You can sign up right there. And if you are a listener of Mark Dawson's Self-Publishing Formula podcast, I was the guest this past week on episode number 100, and I talked with James Blatch about a lot of time management tips and tricks, the things that I teach in my class, actually kind of the bullet points of it, because as much as we talked, there was just way more information that I wanted to share than we had time for. But in that episode, we talk about how there's a handout that goes with the episode. And in that handout is a coupon for $50 off my class. So if you want to go check out the episode, it's at selfpublishingformula.com/episode-100. And that's just the number 100. So selfpublishingformula.com/episode-100. If you haven't been listening to it before, I promise you, this is a great podcast. They have wonderful guests, and I'm not necessarily just talking about that because I was on it last week. I was totally having a fangirl moment because I love this podcast. But they have great guests. There's great information. There's always something that you can find that either you didn't know or you didn't think about doing it that way, or there's always something that I learn that I want to put into use in my own writing career. So it's a great podcast to listen to no matter what. Also, if you haven't listened to episode 4 and 7 of this podcast, Right Now Workshop podcast, I also mentioned some time management and calendaring tricks in those episodes also. So that's what I've got for you now. I'm going to get back to my cinnamon almonds, and I'm very excited. As soon as they're done, I am going to pretend for a moment that I didn't say I was going to stop overeating right now. I'll just finish the almonds and then I'll start my diet again. Isn't that what we say in January? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. All right. I hope you guys are having a great week. Be sure to tune in on Thursday for the next interview. See ya.